So funny. You have like basically, is it like marble kind of like background, super fancy background? Looks like very
It's
expensive.
all plastic.
No, I
Seems like
bet it
it's
is, but
marble.
it looks expensive. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So funny, dude.
Everything in
Oh
here kind
shit.
of looks like marble, but it's actually just plastic. Like even here, I'm just like zooming down. You see this one looks super nice, but it's actually just
You know,
plastic. But that's what you get.
where are you now? Are you in Bangkok?
Yeah, calling from Bangkok, Thailand. Finally back.
Yeah. This is the place. I gotta go. Everybody's there. And like, I
It
gotta
seems
go.
like it. Like I do feel like on Twitter, it seems like more people are actually here than they are because I'm trying to sometimes gather people around. Like I think most are just like hustling. That's what kind of like it is. So what I'm noticing is like everyone is just like at home, like locked in their house and just like grinding, which is amazing. You know, like that's exactly how it should be. Um, but yeah,
I,
it seems
I
like on
feel like
Twitter, I
that's
think
that's that's
more
the
people.
I feel like that's the appeal of Bangkok is like for not too much money, you can be in a luxury apartment and just grind.
Yes.
That's basically the selling point.
Yeah, 100%. Like you have a gym in the condo. There's like a nice coffee machine back like down in the lobby, and then you can order food, amazing, super cheap, and like everything here is made for you to just like stay at home and focus on your business, which is amazing. You just gotta be a bit
Yeah.
cautious to not get fully lonely because you know, like if you keep doing this, like I did last year, I did it for like man, like maybe 40 days on row. You know, like just not going out,
Yeah.
just being at home. Man, that also like gets to you because like you do need a bit of socializing. Even us like nerdy indie hackers who love to be alone.
Yeah. 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 It's like I noticed that by going to a co-working space this past couple of months, and it brings such a balance to have real people in your life that you see often. It sounds so stupid to say because it's basic human thing, but
Man, that's
yeah, like
I
it
think that's
brings
super
such a
important.
balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because like we talk about, oh, you need to work out, you need to eat healthy, you need to sleep well, but we don't talk about you need to see people and talk with them. That's like
Man,
super
I
important.
feel like it even starts at like you don't even need to like talk to people. You just need to be in a place surrounded by others. That's already sometimes enough for me. Like if I go, you know, to a co-working
Yeah,
space and I don't necessarily know anyone, like even just being there and seeing other people work, you know, that's already like nice. And then obviously if you get to engage with people, even better. But yeah, I agree. Super important.
so how long you been back? Because I think you were like traveling. You were traveling to Brazil and shit. Like you basically had like a whole world
Yeah, I've been
tour or
traveling
something.
3 months. After Portugal, went to Brazil for 2 months, and then 1 month Buenos Aires, or like
Yeah.
2 weeks. Yeah, Buenos Aires. And then I essentially just exported yerba mate, as everyone on Twitter kind of saw, and brought it all the way to Bangkok now, and that's where I am.
You mean expo? I didn't follow what you just said.
Don't worry. Somehow, like recently, I think like a week ago, I made a post about like yerba mate, which is this tea, like this nice, like
Yeah.
caffeinated tea, kind of like coffee, but not really. Or the Argentine was saying this. But anyway, I fell in love with this drink and I posted like just a picture on Twitter, like that I brought it, you know, to Asia, and like people went insane. It went viral, and like all the Argentines, they retweeted it, and they all like let's go Argentina, like we need to export more yerba mate to the world. And I'm like, nice,
Okay.
yeah.
So you're like reselling it on the black
No,
market in
dude, yeah,
Thailand?
probably you can, man. Like, cause the markup here is like almost 5 to 10x of the price in Argentina. You can get like half a kilo for like
Oh,
$3, and like here it's like 30. So I mean, man, let's do
well,
some drop shipping.
that's a little business here because like you have so many indie hackers in Southeast Asia. It can just become like the indie hacker drink, and you know, and you just sell it for like 10 times market. That's nice.
Man, in typical indie hacker, like, you know, mindset, like I've already been thinking, like, should I make a directory list for like yerba mate and stuff? And I was like, no, stay away from this. You know, like everyone's doing it with coffee and they're not making a single cent. They've been trying this for like years and nobody, unfortunately, is really making any money with this like super cool coffee specialty side. So
Exactly.
trying
Yeah.
to stay a bit away, but yeah.
I was talking about this with Lucas Herman in a previous
Mm-hmm.
interview, and that I haven't published yet, so you cannot know what I'm talking about. But and we talked about the fact that when you're indie hacker, it's kind of like a curse because then everything becomes a side project, everything becomes a business. You can't just have fun. You can't just like enjoy your fucking tea. you have to build a business around it as soon as you get excited. And that's kind of like tiring. Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to have a hobby that doesn't make me any money, you know? And
Yeah, man. Like I had kind of like had the same thing with like film photography, because I got really into film photography. And I built this cool website for like, it's a, like a kind of like a live, like a wiki for like analog photography for cameras and film stocks. And I remember like back when I built it, I spent so much time back then. I also learned how to code, like how to make the website and make it possible. Then I kind of
yeah,
neglected the entire hobby. So I gathered all the data, but I wasn't shooting anymore for like 3 months. And then I realized like, huh, what am I doing here? Like, but the cool hobby just got replaced by me just coding for other people to enjoy, which, you know, I don't know if that's like super great. Let's not destroy all of our hobbies.
yeah, that's it. I mean, kind of like in between with one of mine right now, because like my current hobby is basically dating and winning on the dating apps. That's like my hobby right now. And like
Awesome.
I'm getting so crazy over it, and I'm spending money on it. Like what I mean is like I'm trying to find the best pictures. I'm gonna get some photo shoots. I'm getting better clothes. I'm like, I need to win this game. Like it's just a fun game to me now, you know.
Right.
Just like the challenge.
How do you attribute like a goal, or like what's the scoring?
I think it's just like the quality and the number of matches you get, because I get so little matches, but I think most men get very few matches. But I know that like you can get like a top 1% profile or something and get basically all the matches. Basically, most women just swipe on like 5% of guys, basically. And it's mostly a pictures thing. And so, yeah. And for a while I was like, you know, I was hesitant, like, yeah, do I? And eventually I was like, fuck this. I'm going to take this seriously. This is my side project now. And I was like, okay, I contacted a photographer in Paris and photographer in like different cities. And I'm just going to like do this like fully and see how it goes. But
making pictures, like sexy pictures for men.
Not sexy, just like attractive pictures for my profile. Right. But then as soon as I started doing that, I was like, this is the main problem guys have, is like we don't have good pictures. And because women are much better than men at getting cool pictures, you know, there's just like, you know, we're like self-conscious about it. We're like, yeah, I don't want to go this trouble of having good pictures. Fuck this.
And we're scared to ask our friends to do it, because it seems
exactly.
You know,
yeah, there's like this weird self-consciousness around it.
Like,
we're like, yeah. But like, if we just make this little switch, like we can, you know, clean up so badly. Like it's so awesome. So I'm like very like, you know, excited by it. And so I was already thinking, okay, I could build a product where like you could find a photographer in a city near you. Like he knows exactly what type of photos to take. And, you know, after like 2 hours, you get like these killer pictures and you have like 10x to Tinder results. So, yeah. But for now, to be honest, I'm managing to enjoy it as like a personal hobby, because I have ideas, but I'm like, I don't really want to get into it. I don't want to, you know, so I think like maybe
curious like how long this will stay a hobby, because like just from personal experience, like I feel like everyone like has been there, like trying, you know, how I don't want to say clean up. Maybe that's the perfect term for it. But like,
yeah, I was joking.
After, yeah, man, like whatever, like after playing like the game or whatever for like, I don't know, maybe half a year, I got like really depressed. Just, you know, like these like short-term casual things. Just
I bet. Oh yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's fun. Like think we develop.
Oh, you know, it's the funny thing is it's not even what I want. I don't even want short-term things. I mean, but I want to win the Tinder game. I don't like. It's not even about the people. It's about I want to win this game. Like it's a game. I want to win. And then I want to just like find one and like be happy with one person. I don't even want to have sex with like 100 women or something crazy like that. It's not my, you know. But it's more like
interesting if you manage to find out the ELO score and like how it actually works. There's a lot of shady science behind it.
Yeah.
The ranking algorithm, but like if you find out how to dominate Tinder, man.
Yeah. And that's funny because like for the past 3 weeks, I haven't done anything with this podcast. I had so many recordings. I haven't edited anything. I haven't tweeted. Like I'm like because I'm just doing that. Like I'm spending my day working on that. Like it's just like so
Wow.
exciting to me to have like this new kind of like side project.
Have you
But
also looked into these like apps that are? I've never used them because I didn't like it's such a hassle to do. But like, there's these like apps where you take a picture of your chat and then you like send it an AI and it comes back with like a better answer, which I think is a bit of a hit or miss, I guess. But like people making like tons of money on this.
yeah, I saw that. I haven't tried it. That's actually I think DMs is something I'm pretty good at because I'm good with text. So I don't know, and I want to get better too. Yeah, I don't know. Like this is
But
what
so
I did go.
can you reveal to us like what is the product? If I understand correct, what are you doing now is sourcing like photographers and then trying to build like a product around
No,
making.
no, I'm not trying to do it. I'm just for now. I'm just experimenting on myself to find like
Oh,
okay,
okay,
what
I
does
understand.
work. I'm just like because I need to because I want to meet women, so like I need to improve. But like, and then I'm like okay. And so what I did is that I mean there's this website called Photo Feeler,
Fila,
and
yeah.
like I just like it's funny like I'm such in an indie mindset now. I'm so used to these things that I have zero hesitation in paying for things. Like I'm like, oh yeah, and I just basically spent $50 on this website, sent like 6 pictures so it could rate them and tell me because like it's people voting to tell you if this picture makes you attractive, makes you look smart, makes you look trustworthy or not, and then you just use your best pictures. That's like pretty good service. And yeah, I'm just geeking out on this. I'm just geeking out, and I'm found this guy who has a channel on YouTube called Playing Fire, and
Okay.
he's very genuine. He's very cool. Like all he wants is sleep with a lot of women, so that's his thing. But he's very cool, very genuine, and has a very authentic vibe to him. That's really refreshing.
What's your
So
opinion on Photofila? What I mean with the question is that do you think that the people that are on there are sort of in the like selection bias, problem, as in like who actually is rating your pictures there? Now, like I always like when I used it, I was like, who is actually behind that? Like, is it like, all the attractive women that I would be interested in as well? Or is it more like
no. Obviously, it's other losers like us that are using the website.
exactly?
But that said, you can still see like the relative difference between your pics. It made me, it's kind of like, I think I had like some pics that I thought was good that I ended up being like a 5 out of 10. And a pic that I thought was bad ended up having a 9. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I show it to friends and like, oh shit, that's a good picture and that was like validating, even though I would have
Nice.
never thought of using it. So myself. So no, I think it's good. I think like if it was only attractive women, my score would be way lower. But I think the relative scores between the pictures is like good.
I see. That makes sense. That's a good argument.
So yeah, side project and hobbies, man. It's so do you have any right now that you're managing to do? So there was this coffee thing, but that you're not turning into a business?
The yerba mate thing. No, I'm almost like a bit the opposite now. Like whereas I've been like last autumn, I guess, like I've been kind of falling a bit in a hole. Whereas like I'm working on HelpKit, where it's just like this software as a service, no code tool, it turns Notion pages into a professional help center or documentation site. And so working on this for like 2.5, almost 3 years, this autumn, all of a sudden, like everything kind of came, I guess, like crashing down in the typical entrepreneurial roller coaster. I was just getting super like, kind of annoyed by working on it. I've been doing it like every day, for like so many, like years, basically, doing it over and over. And then HelpKit also stagnated a bit in terms of revenue back then. And instead of like me being actually like super motivated by like, oh my God, let's get out of this slump, let's see what I can do. It like even trickled down further. I was like, all right, like the numbers don't like, like motivate me anymore. Like my notifications don't pop up that often anymore. And so then combination with me like getting a bit like annoyed by just working on it, I was like, whoa, man. And then like I fell a bit down in that hole and I really looked for like ways to get out of it. And I remember like whenever I kind of felt like this, I was working on like something new, like just as a side thing. And so I relaunched this like film photography site, Film Types, like a new version. I redesigned it. And I just made it like nicer and have like some new ideas. And that really helped me. Like I spent like maybe 2, 3 weeks on it, just something new, like that motivated
Yeah.
me. I knew it doesn't make any money. Like now, first time actually, like last month, I got like my first month like sponsorship. It was like $250, like pretty nice, like finally it made some money. But regardless, like I was just thinking about something new to do. So that's what I was working on. But one thing that I did notice now, especially because like what I've been noticing now, getting the motivation back, like, for working on my main thing, is that it really, like, sometimes you really need to put like your full focus on like one thing. And like, I love to do sometimes side things. I think you should do them if they make you feel better. But like, you really gotta like, like boil down what is the one thing that's actually working. In my case, it's HelpKit. And I got my motivation back. So that's why I've been like, just 100% like now working on it again and finally like happy again. But man, that was not great.
So you were feeling down because like, okay, so it wasn't growing anymore and you had lost kind of like the momentum and motivation. And so you spent time on side projects, kind of like forgetting about HelpKit, and that like helped you, get motivation again. So what made you want to come back to HelpKit though? What made you feel like, oh, okay, I'm ready to come back to it?
Honestly, like I think it was time. Like I was working on frame types like 3 weeks maybe, and then like launched it. People loved the design. That was like a nice dopamine push. And then after a while, I think the biggest problem I always had was like I kind of neglected a bit, the like other marketing distribution channels for HelpKit, because I didn't really know anything about SEO. I didn't really know anything about like affiliate marketing. Just yesterday launched like an affiliate marketing for HelpKit finally. These little things, So I got like, it's like analysis paralysis, essentially. What happens is like, I wrote down so many things I could do, but I just couldn't decide on what to do. And that made me so depressed that I didn't start anything for so long. And then just one day I woke up and I was like, this can't be it. Literally after the gym, Peter Levis, after deadlifting my own body weight, I came out of the gym and I was like, something gotta change. And then luckily I just, it just changed, like I just, all of a sudden I had this idea of like, okay, start with SEO, like start small. And then like what I realized is I can like ask other people for help, like something as an indie solo founder, you never really think about. So I reached out to other people that know much more than me and I had calls with them and, and like all of this motivated me so much because they shared their knowledge. I had some paid consulting calls as well. So it's not like all like free stuff. Like I paid like for mentorship, I guess. And that really, really helped me to get out of it.
Yeah, that's interesting how that was definitely a problem I had, is like you have so many routes you could take and everything can be very overwhelming. And yeah, I noticed the same, like when you take a step back and you do something else, eventually like all of these little stresses that you have about, oh, I should do this, I should do that, all these tiny, not really important things, they kind of like settle. And then when you come back to it, it's like, oh, I need to do this. So then you were like, okay, I'm going to do SEO. Like you weren't like hesitating between everything, because it kind of like revealed itself to be, okay, that's the thing you want to do. And then, it makes it simpler. Like when you have 10 things in your head, like it's very, it happens to me all the time. You stop moving because there's too many things.
Yeah, that. And I think one other important thing, especially, is that especially when you feel down, spending too much time on like social media, and for us, especially on Twitter, where like survivorship bias is so high and you see everyone making like 5K MRR added in 1 month. And you're just like sitting there and you're like, okay, nice. I'm kind of happy, but I'm also like secretly,
fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you. Like I'm like struggling right now. And then everyone seems to be just making like millions. And it like, I know deep down, it's like survivorship bias, but man, I get tricked every single time I see it. And then, it's just like, that's why I also stopped being a bit active on Twitter. Like people ask me like in my DMs, hey, are you like, I've noticed you're not that active on Twitter anymore. And I'm like, yeah, like just for my own like health benefit, I guess.
Yeah, that's this, I think it's because, like it works, it works to talk about success. So people do that. Now, the good news is it also works to talk about burnout and struggles. So that's what I started to do. But, it's not even depressing anymore because I'm kind of like, out of like trying to build startups for a while. So I don't even care, but it's just boring. Even beyond being depressing, it's just fucking boring. Like it's just always the same updates. I mean, I'm always happy when I see someone be like, hey, I just made my first money. I'm always going to like support them because that's awesome. But once it's like your 200th post on like how much money you made this month, like it has no value, you know. I mean, it has value for people who've never seen it, but if you're used to it, you're like, can we talk about some other shit, guys? Can we talk about something else? You know?
I mean, man, like honestly, like that was like when you and James started like the Monday, man, correct me the name, Monday podcast. Like what was it? I don't
No,
know.
that was the previous name of his. I mean,
I know
he had
but,
another
like,
podcast with someone else that was called No More Mondays. That's like an awesome name.
But I mean,
But
yours with James, what was the name of that
ours
one?
is called This Indie Life.
Right.
And I might
This
actually
Indie Life.
rename it now that I'm solo to Founders Therapy, but I'm not
That's a
sure.
good one. I like that.
Cool.
But regardless, what I wanted to say is like once you start like sharing a bit of your like more raw, you know, insights,
Yeah.
like that really helped me also to like now that I realize it again, like that was like sometimes the only podcast I was actually listening to was yours, and like I was like, wow, you were the first time like actually speaking about like not feeling great and like, you know, like indie hackers kind of struggling, and then then the first episode you published with Nico, like hearing his stories like one-to-one to me. We're literally like in the almost same spot, you know. And so there's so many more probably that have that feeling, but yeah, on Twitter you only see the ones that are like feeling great, which is, you know, like I mean, I hope everyone's happy, but like I don't know, entrepreneurism is kind of fucking hard.
Yeah, and I feel like I think also it's because it's hard to find a thing that works on social media, and once people see that they share normal thoughts and they don't get views or they don't get engagement, because like I think to share something that's kind of like hard, it's not like you have to do it a different way, and so sharing something that's difficult is kind of like I think it's harder to write about failure than success, because if you write about failure and you're just depressed, it's not cool to read. Like you don't like, and so people don't engage with it. So you have to write it, because like if you just say, "Hey, I made $1 million," that's enough. You can just hide that.
Yeah.
But if you just write, "Hey, I feel like shit," it's not gonna like. You need to write, "I feel like shit. This is what's happening to me." Kind of like have to open up and kind of like, you know, and that's I think harder.
You need to make yourself really vulnerable, and like I can emphasize why that is really hard for people, and like I feel like sometimes maybe being vocal about this isn't the most important thing. I do think that sharing, like sometimes sharing your downs as well. Like the one thing you always see is when you share your negatives, people will comment like, "Hey, I've been there too." You know, like, "Oh my God, finally someone says this." You know, so you always need like this one like brave person who is a bit more, I guess, out there to like actually, you know, express their actual feelings. And that's what you're doing, man. Like, so that's why I appreciate it.
And that's thanks. And what's funny is like, I think I interviewed like 5 people already, and that I haven't published yet. I feel so bad about it, but whatever, I will publish everything. And so I noticed that, you know, you don't see them on their social media. On their social media, you don't see it. You don't see like the pain. And but when you talk to them, you see, holy shit, like there's so many stuff. Like I think that's why I want to call it Founders Therapy, because I feel like it's kind of what it is. Like it's like I want to make this podcast kind of like a space where you can talk about, you know, what's happening, because it's hard to do for a lot of people on social media. So we would have this podcast, and I actually opened the indie hotline. If you go to indielifepod.com, you have a hotline that you can like send messages to. Well, you can like, if you're a founder and you feel like shit, and you can actually send me a video or an audio talking about it. And then I like, you know, mention it in an episode or something and react to it.
Nice.
And I actually had my first submission yesterday. So I don't know, I'd probably make an episode dedicated to that, to like all the submissions that I had. I'll see. Or you know what? No, let me just like read it and let us like react to it.
Let's do it.
Okay. So this is from Daniel. I don't know which Daniel, but that is Daniel. And so Daniel says, I've been freelancing since 2020 and trying to build side projects by myself or with friends, but none of them worked out. Financially, it wasn't too bad because I had savings, but it was starting to be stressful not being able to make enough money to live with side projects. Okay. Then I saw people hiring like Sahil with Gumroad, okay, with high hourly rates and flexible hours. And I started to question, why am I trying to build a project to maybe reaching 1K per month or 10K if I'm lucky, when I can put my efforts into joining a company like Gumroad and make like well over 10K per month just with 4 hours of work a day? Okay, makes sense. I started to think about it by the time I decided to quit indie hacking and get a job. Yeah, because like last year I got a job for that. Long story short, I got a job like that. I've only joined this week, but already the relief that I have is quite big. And if I do well and continue with this job for a while, it's literally life-changing. I've always wondered why few people talk about it. I guess it's survivorship bias in Twitter, where most people want to hear the successes, so they get amplified. But maybe there are people talking about it, but nobody reads them. I thought maybe you wanted to touch on that because I'm guessing many people don't even consider it because it's like failure. As I thought until I started questioning it. Good luck with the pod and the rest of the projects. Best, Daniel. So thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, what did you think of that, man?
Man, I think he's like 110% right in the spot, you know, like I think that this is exactly what like a lot of smart developers struggle with, is the fact that like you can, like if you look for it, it's not that easy. Like I think if every developer could find this amazing job for a 4-hour work week and getting tens of thousands of dollars a month, like everyone would do it, right? But if you can find it, I mean, like there's like this common saying that if you care about getting really rich fast and you are like a software engineer, like making your own business is kind of a bit counterproductive because it's so much easier to like, you know, fire financial independence, retire early. If you just save up enough and you are like, you stay a normal software engineer. And man, like I really emphasize with that. I don't think it's in any way a failure. In like even more, I feel like it like he said that he feels relieved, right? Like that's exactly what you want. Like what's the worst case that you can be?
Yeah.
The worst case is that you continuously have to think about surviving the next month or the next months. And then you're working on this like indie hacker project and like, man, like building, for example, especially like software as a service, it is so draining and there are so many moving parts. You literally will feel awful most of the time. So if then all of a sudden you also have the money aspect, like you're not going to survive, like it's horrible. So that's why I think like I was very, very lucky because I was still studying when HelpKit actually became run and profitable.
I remember. Yeah.
I spent an entire year literally not socializing at all, like spending 16 hours a day working, so I did my fair share of like suffering and to kind of get there. And like I was really lucky because I didn't have to think about like the monetary aspect at that point. But if you want to like make your own side project, like I would always say, try to be financially somewhat stable or have enough buffer because man, otherwise it's horrible. I don't know what you think. What do you think about that?
You know, I really resonate with the word that like relief. And that's how it felt, you know, when I got this job last year. It was like I was so burnt out and so stressed out about trying to make money with the startup. And I felt also ashamed of failing and having to give up and I think the worst thing was going back to a job. Like, I mean, the idea, doing it wasn't that painful. Yeah, but it was a relief. But it was so scary to kind of like lose my identity, especially because I was like, you know, on Twitter and people view me as a certain person, you know, as a founder. And I had like, I was getting some fulfillment from that. And so, yeah, I felt so bad. I felt like such a failure for like not living up to the Twitter fantasy I was kind of like presenting. But yeah, you know, like he said, like it was such a fucking relief. Yeah. And like for months, it was so good. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I'm good now. I feel recovered. I want to start this indie thing again, but like differently. You know, I'm focusing on content, this podcast, writing. I don't want to build a startup right now. But I had to listen to myself and, you know, and to feel better about myself. And I feel like you need to follow that. Like if it feels like, okay, this startup thing, is too much, just like give up and do something else. It reminds me of somebody I met in like California like 15 years ago, and she was like climbing like big mountains, like rock climbing, like big things.
Mhm.
And she told me, there was this mountain I wanted to climb, and I started once and I did it, and like I failed after like a third of the road. And I felt so bad about myself, but I came home and then I did some other things. And later on, she tried again. And then she almost made it to the top, but she failed again. And then a few years later, she did it again and she made it. And that makes me think of that, like, and maybe when you fail, like when I failed, I literally thought I would never going to do a startup again, because I was too exhausted. But then, if you really have it in you, it will come back. Like, for me, I eventually came back to try
Yeah,
again,
you're back.
in a different way. So I think it's like, okay to stop. And it's actually, and you can't know how, because we always say we chase freedom, but I feel so much freer now to know that, like I have some runway until like October or something.
Yeah.
And I feel relaxed because I'm like, yeah, you know what? If it fails again, I'm taking a job.
Yeah.
And I have zero worries about it. I don't feel self-conscious about it. I don't feel bad about it. I know I can find a cool job like I did. So I know I'm going to find something that's cool. Not even like highly paid, but just like good pay. And that's enough.
Yeah.
And chill. And, that's okay. We can take 10 years to climb the mountain. Or we can even give up and say, fuck that mountain. I'm just going to like, stay in my cabin. Like, who gives a shit? Like, do whatever makes you happy, So
I love this.
yeah.
And I think like I read somewhere that that's the most scientifically quoted quote of this podcast I read somewhere. But I think people in their 40s are statistically the ones that are finally breaking through with like the really successful business. So just for like some, like reference point, like people in their 40s, 50s, that's the time where you actually like most of them actually really like have a successful startup. And then
I read that too.
just
Yeah.
putting this in perspective, how many tries did they have? Like maybe they've been, and like also I think it's very important to, in one thing that what I do notice is like, if you can find a job that is, as Daniel described, 4 hours, like a day. Well, I don't know if you said a week, I think a day.
A day. Yeah. 4 hours a day.
Well, yeah, a day. That's really amazing. If that, like, if you can find this, amazing. If you have that time, maybe you can use it for like side project, not on the side. Like I wouldn't use the 4 hours more now to just chill and watch Netflix. Like if you that type of guy, then I do think that probably like indie hacking isn't something for you in the first place. But what I want to get to is that if you do happen to like, still want to indie hack, but you're realizing, your one way is getting shorter, and additionally, it's hard to like find a job that is not super demanding. You can be like, still super demanding job, but you're getting earned, that you earn enough. There is one option if you have the flexibility, if you don't bound to a family and a location, man,
Yeah.
literally just going to Southeast Asia. And like, it sounds like I'm just shitting this shit all of the time, but like I needed someone to tell me this, so that I realized what is possible with like all things in life. Someone needs to tell you this. You can live if you come to Bangkok, like maybe it's not even your favorite city, but you can live here for like less than $1,000 a month and like just live a nice life and can focus on your business, So you can drastically reduce your runway, not your runway. You can increase your runway and decrease your monthly costs by a lot magnitude that you would probably be used to maybe somewhere if you have the flexibility. So I meet a couple of weeks here in Bangkok. Actually, the same happened to them. Like they got burned out. They were living in where were they living? Man, I can't recall. Somewhere, maybe it was in the US. But anyway, like we're spending like almost like 8K a month just on like expenditure. Then they come here.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like they can focus on their startup, What is like 8 months, what is like 1 month in the US might be like 5 or 6, maybe like in
Yeah,
here
exactly.
in
Yeah.
Southeast Asia. So that is a possibility. Of course, there's like challenges to this as well. Like I'm not downplaying that, but like I think there are some options, and like the most important thing is getting away from that. Like you need to create this somewhat like security mindset. Like if you don't feel financially secure, I think that's like the worst case, because then everything you just start like being anxious all the time, and like that's probably the worst position to be in.
Yeah, that's funny you say that because I have this unemployment benefits until October. And
That's
then I
nice.
have like my emergency funds of, let's say, 20K. That's all I have. And I have a car that I can sell for like 10K. And so I'm like, and that's why I feel good right now, because I'm like, end of October, if I'm not like surviving with, podcast content, whatever, or whatever I do by then, and maybe I will maybe Dominate Tinder will exist. I have no idea. We'll see. But I'm like, I can like take a job, or I can sell my car. So I will have 30K and just go to Southeast Asia and spend a couple years there. And fuck this, and that is so, and I feel very free because of that, because I have all these options. I can have a job, I can live in like a less expensive country. And there's something very freeing about allowing yourself to go out of the normal route, of like the route of like, oh, you need to like have more and more expenses, you need to have all this thing, and eventually it builds up, Even right now, I'm single, I almost have no expenses, but I live in France, I have a car, and like basically I spend 3K per month. And I don't do anything. I mean, I do a bit because now, I spend a bit on like dating apps and like clothing right now, but that's like not that much, basically, even if I was doing actually nothing, I would spend 2,500. So,
man, there you go. Like that's and like you can boil this down to like half of it probably in Southeast Asia if you want to, like very easily.
Just taking a small break for our conversation to talk about this week's sponsor. Now, don't skip. As you know, I'm very selective with the people I let sponsor this show. I've said no to many people already, and when I say yes, it's really because I really like the founder, I love their story, and I think it can be useful to you. And this week's sponsor is called Micro Assets. The founder, Simon, reached out to me over Twitter DM a couple weeks ago, and I mean, his intro was pretty interesting. He said, hey man, I would love to support the show. Thanks. But I can't afford like the $400 for a sponsorship right now. Do you think we can work something out? And I was like, just tell me your story and we'll see how it goes, because what I care about the most is like the story. Is it interesting to you guys? And also, is the product interesting? And he told me his story and I loved it. So let me actually read that to you. I was pretty tired and disappointed with Acquire.com. They started out championing all the bootstrap makers and won people over, but now they're not interested in the type of maker who is featured on your podcast. So that means small indie makers. People are making a ton of great things, but you know how hard it can be. Sometimes you decide you want to sell and move on to the next thing. It becomes too much of an uphill battle. But ever since Acquire.com became funded, it's no longer solo bootstrapper friendly. They don't want our business anymore. Look at all the new fees they introduced and how they dictate the price of every listing. So Micro Assets aims to be a credible alternative to Acquire, as easy to use and built by founders for founders. We will never take VC cash. On the website, we put the manifesto and we plan to stay true to that. I realize though that this is more of a rent at Acquire at this stage. So when I got his DM, to be honest, I really liked it because I liked his passion. And it made me feel about how a lot of us start in this journey. For example, me with Logology that I started 6 years ago, I was fed up with all these shitty logo generator websites that pretend to be awesome, but they just use basic icons from common libraries. And we thought with my ex-wife and co-founder, we could do better than this, And I really saw myself in Simon when he sent me his DM because I'm like, he was frustrated with Acquire.com. And since then, I done some digging and I can confirm that he's suffering from a real pain point of like not being able to sell or buy tiny indie projects. And he was like, you know what? I'm going to do something about it. So I checked out his website. And first thing that I noticed is that it's incredibly simple. Like you just sign up in literally 10 seconds and then you can see the list of projects. You have no fees, nothing to pay. It's only if you want to make an offer or sell your project that you need to buy the very inexpensive membership. But they're not making money based on the transactions or taking a percentage or anything like that. It's just like a small fee and you can get access to the listings and start doing business with other indie makers. And the best thing about it, I think, is it's for small indie projects. Even if you have a tiny website that you're not really sure what to do with anymore, you can list it on there, put it for like $500, $1,000, $5,000 and see if you get any offers. You can even not set a price and just see if people want to buy it. And I think that's actually very useful for us founders to see what's the value that we can get from the assets that we build. And with something like Acquire or bigger platforms, it's more complex, it's for bigger deals. But with this thing, it's really just like an ads website where you put like your website, your metrics, and you start, directly talking with people who might potentially want to buy it. Or in the reverse, you can find kind of like tiny products that are already built, but that maybe don't have a lot of traction or that, the owner wants to get rid of, and you can get a kickstart on a new startup idea right away. And so if you are interested in micro assets, Simon actually gave me a coupon code for us to use. So it's IndieLife, INDIELIFE, and it gives you basically 30% off either monthly subscription or annual. And like, if right now I was still owner of Logology, my previous startup, I would like list it instantly just to see how much I could get. Because I think just knowing and having a couple offers, it can completely change your mindset and make you think, oh, wow, okay, I don't just have like a little revenue. I also have an asset that I can sell and make money from. So it's a no-brainer to me. Whenever you have a startup with some traction, list it on some marketplaces to see how it goes. And from what I've seen so far, microassets.co, it's the best marketplace for us indie makers. They have no fees. They're made by other indie makers. And it's incredibly simple. You can get offers in literally minutes. So I would highly recommend you check it out. Microassets.co. Thank you, Simon, for supporting this show. And now let's go back to our conversation.
I do want to like address this one point. Maybe someone is listening and is like also in that position, because I've seen and heard about this a lot as well. And that is that if you find yourself in the other position where you're like, you've been a software engineer for like a remote company, you've been making like good amount of money for a long time. I've met quite a few people that were like, they're not really handcuffed, or like they just, they really want to start their own thing. They want to try something, but they are like so comfortable in what they're currently doing. And like, I've met like maybe like 2 people over the course of like the last few years traveling that like from like the first time I met them, they keep saying, oh, I'm going to make this business like in a week. I'm going to start this business. I'm going to do this. And then 4 years later, they still haven't done anything. And I do feel like if you are like financially a bit stable and you're a software engineer, especially, or like you're like in something that is like, knowledge based, like sectors, like all of us are probably listening to this, like maybe take the leap and just try something out. Like you said, you can always be safe in the back of your head that you can go back to something else. Like you don't have to work for this company for the rest of your life. Maybe just try something out or try it on the side. Like, but the problem with this is like, I just keep hearing people, like most people, they are really occupied with their, day job. Like they want to go home and then, need to chill a bit, because if you work.
Oh yeah, I never got how you could. I never managed to do a side project when I have like a full-time job.
You see these indie hackers, they have like kids and a side job. They're freelancing and, like are indie hacking. I mean, I really don't know how they do it, but like that's like the most insane like achievement from what I've seen so far. I do hope they're mentally well.
And and a family is kind of hard, because like, so I didn't have a family with Lucy. It was just like us, but like that's still kind of like a family. And we didn't have kids, but I noticed that she didn't have the same kind of like mentality about this. And so that was harder for me. Like it was hard to be like, because I was like, yeah, I want to go to Bangkok, and she's like, yeah, I don't really want to go, but you can go, and she wasn't like, she was cool about it, but like, it's not the same, she wouldn't like come with me for like 6 months and live with little money. That's not her thing. She wants to stay, and I feel like that's pretty hard, because it made me feel way more pressure to kind of like, it made it more difficult basically, because, you had to, you couldn't just leave and have like very little spending, like, I had to maintain this whole thing. And I think like when you have a family, wow, it must be awesome if you find someone that's actually the kind of woman I'm looking for now, like who's really like gonna be on board with everything. And, be like, let's go. Like I don't remember how they're called, but like, these two founders, who are like on a sailboat. I don't remember the name
Oh
of the
yeah,
guy.
James and
There's this
Danielle.
guy and this.
Yeah, from
Yeah,
Leave Me
okay, James
Alone.
and Daniel. Yeah, yeah. Leave me alone. The awesome like newsletter kind of, not email spam thing. And
Yeah.
so, and I see them like they seem like both have the same mindset. Like they just want to be on a boat and travel the world and indie hack and like holy shit, like this is the thing. And I don't think they have too much spending. Like must not be that expensive.
Well, no man, it sounds expensive to like be on a boat, but I would.
Well, yeah, but if you have nothing else, if you have literally nothing else,
fair point.
But
actually,
anyway, maybe it's expensive, but that's not even the point. Like they seem like they would have the same vibe, going to whatever and just like, and yeah, and I feel like it must be so hard when you have like, let's say a normal wife or a normal partner, and they're not into this mindset. And so and even if you have kids, like, and there's like this tension between, because it's kind of like also a quest for freedom, especially when you're a man, kind of like a deep thing. Like we want to be free, we want to be like, be in monk mode and just like, go crazy. It's a very kind of like a man thing to do. And yeah, finding someone who's going to be okay with that, like Nico said, basically what works is that he has like a long distance for a relationship. So that's one way. Like I'm not into that, but that's one way. And so, yeah, it's because it's kind of sad to have to be alone in this. I actually would like to speak to Peter Levels about it, because now he has his what I thought was an AI girlfriend, but then I realized, oh, it's a real woman. Because he kept showing pictures of her and like with AI.
No, she's nice. I met her. She's real.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, he told me, I was like, oh shit, because I kept making jokes about it, and then I realized she was real. But so yeah, like how do you find someone, who's gonna be on board for that? Because I want a family, I want kids one day, and I'm like, but I don't want it to be like, I don't want to have to feel like, oh, I'm gonna have fun for the next few years, make money, and then I have a boring life. I don't want it to be this way. I want to be like, keep pushing to whatever you want to do and find someone with whom you can do that. And even the kids will be on board, and that would be awesome. You know what I mean? This sounds very hard to find though.
I think, yeah, man, you're explaining probably like the finding a, needle in a haystack kind of issue that every entrepreneur has, be it like, female or male. Like you want to find someone that can like keep up your pace in a way. I think maybe even more importantly, can understand like the struggles or the weird shit you go through. Like, sometimes you meet, like sometimes maybe you have a date scheduled, for like 7 p.m. You've been planning this maybe for like a few days, and then your server crashes. I mean, man, like good luck going on that date. You can't. Like I couldn't. I would need to stay at home, cancel the date, and then it trickles down. You feel horrible. She feels horrible. Maybe a bit pissed. It's like this, and then, but you need someone that is like somewhat flexible. I can understand if someone is pissed, but they are like, all right, like that's him. I love him for like being this ambitious. Like I think it does create, like being ambitious is a really big important trait, I guess, like in terms of attraction, especially for men. So that exists, but like I've been like in this situation, like a few times, and now for like past like 8 months, been in a relationship again, and it's amazing. And I like the interesting thing that you just mentioned is like so for her, like she like I'm not really sure like before me if she like was together with someone who was like really super entrepreneurial and like ambitious, and so there were definitely like some little hurdles, I guess, like nothing crazy, but like I had like sometimes to sit down with her and just be like honest and be like, look, this is kind of like how my life looks like. I am like, I like to make compromises. That's I think what a relationship is about. But like, like my priority, it's like this kind of like hustle. Right now I want to grind. I want to, get to like financial independence, retire early stuff. Want to make enough, like a few millions. That's my main mindset right now, and I do need someone who like kind of can understand that. And it's not easy. Like we had a few talks, and she does understand it. And I think like it's getting better and better the more we talk about it. And But like honestly, I cannot look underneath the surface. Like I don't know exactly how she feels about it. Like I can only imagine for most people, the things that like even normal friends, let's say like your male friend, they don't understand like that sometimes you just cannot make it to an appointment, or that you
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
need
yeah.
to stay 3 days at home being isolated and just code. So it's a big challenge, and especially the part of separating, like still keeping your routine and doing your own stuff versus, having a partner, and like also juggling this is super hard. But I've never, like, it's the first time for me that I'm like trying to figure this out. So it's also, like you said, kind of like a game. It's interesting. It's an experience.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, but yeah, but like, I honestly, I think it's freaking hard to like find someone that understands you. And then my personal opinion was, and I think coming back to the thing you mentioned with Peter, at least that's how I rationalized it. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but like, when Peter, like, he had like girlfriends before as well, so it's not like that. But like, I feel like if I would be in Peter's situation, maybe at Peter's position, I would be a bit more like, okay, I don't really have to like super struggle now, like sitting on my laptop all day and really trying to make it. I'm a bit more chill, I can chill out for a day if my girlfriend wants to. You know what I mean? Like it's a bit,
I would
or
love to
maybe
talk to
not.
him about it because I doubt that he changed anything. He seems to have the same vibe, at least from Twitter. He seems to be the same.
Probably.
So,
Maybe he
and
has.
and, and I
Maybe he
think, and
managed
if
to.
I put myself in his shoes,
Yeah.
like it becomes who you are. So it's not even, it's like, because you said, yeah, it's the grinding phase, and that's true.
Mm,
But I think that's what you love also. That's what we
mm,
love. So
yeah.
that's like what gives meaning kind of like to our lives.
Yeah.
Kind
Fair
of like
point.
it's like the way we want to live. Now, of course, do you have like, it's probably a bit less painful once you're like more established and you can find more balance and have more time for other things. But like, it's still going to be your priority and it's still going to be what you want to do in life. He
Mhm.
seems so invested into his like new photo AI, kind of like try on clothes thing right now, which looks
Yeah.
awesome. So, he has like purpose in his life. He knows what. And so there's
I
no
agree.
point
Maybe
in
you're
like,
right with this.
his life would become shit if he starts focusing on his girlfriend all the time for like 6 months. I mean, I bet. Because like if you just do that, like you lose purpose in your life. And
Yeah.
so, you
Good
know,
point. I think
so
the
I'm
point
like,
of like us having like this kind of purpose, like this, like I told this actually to my girlfriend like the other week. Like I need to be working to be somewhat happy and feel fulfilled. Like if I don't work for
yeah,
like 3 days straight, I feel like miserable. And I mean, like I think for some, like, especially like I told this to my mom like years ago. And the first thing she said is, oh my God, you're a workaholic, like you just love to work. This is dangerous. Or like, I don't know, whatever, like, like typical mom
yeah,
stuff. But I mean, to a certain extent, but like, honestly, like keep doing what deep down makes you happy and keeps you motivated. Like that's the first priority, and everything else, you got to work your way around it, I guess. Cause otherwise
yeah.
the worst thing you can do is feel miserable as yourself, right? The whole idea of like putting yourself first before anyone else, like it's not like egoistical. It's more like you need to be happy to make other people happy,
It's
like
mental
that's the
health. It's
idea.
like, you need to put the oxygen mask on you first kind of thing,
Oh yeah, that's a great analogy as well.
So you said that you talked about your mom. And it's funny because you told me before that you told your parents you'd be a millionaire by 30. You kept telling that
Yeah.
to your parents. What's the story
Yeah,
of that?
man, I mean, literally as it is, like I just, whenever like I started indie hacking, which was like maybe 3 4 years ago, I saw Peter like making almost millions back then,
Yeah,
and like the little startups, and then I made an app that made like $100 a month, and then I was like, if I
nice.
can like, you know 1000x this, let's see where we're going, you know what I mean? And then and then I just started as a joke. I told my mom like, hey, at the end, like when I'm 30, I'm gonna be a millionaire. And first she was like, ha ha ha. But now for whatever reason, I think because she saw, I've been like becoming more successful with what I'm doing. And she like saw like also like, help kid, like how much it's making, etc., etc. So that essentially she now actually like every time we call almost, she's like, so are you a millionaire already? I'm
She's
like,
rooting for you. Yeah.
and
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like,
That's
I
awesome.
know she's making a joke, but like deep down, I'm like, you, I don't have this like weird family. I need to prove myself shit, like I don't have that luxury,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I have it for myself. Like I told her that I'm going to be a millionaire by 30. So I'm going to be a millionaire by 30. Like, you know, like that's it, so I have
Well,
this
you're on your way. Like
extreme.
you're on the path.
I'm
So
on the path, but like honestly, like still, like every day I wake up and I feel like I could, like I want to make more. I want to be somewhere where someone else is right now. Like every day, like I feel it, and I think in my head at least, like before I not be able to like do like at least like a lean fire, i.e., like making it enough to like worst case.
financial
In
independence. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't sure like I can like like really breathe through, but I do think it's a bit of a like rationalizing this with myself. Like I also need to be a bit more realistic in terms of like if I not reach 1 million when I'm 30, I'm not gonna kill myself. Like I'm just gonna be okay. Let's see. Like I need to be a bit. Like my ambition is there. I'm gonna get there. Like for sure. But even if it doesn't happen, like okay, like at least I have some runway. Like I'm not like really scared. That's I think the way how I
And
would
I feel like
finalize it.
there's so much luck involved as well. Like you
Oh
definitely
yeah.
have to work hard and shit, but like a lot of people work hard, do the right things, and it just doesn't pay off, as quickly as they want. Like it's really
Yeah.
like, you know, uh, and I feel like I'm kind of like tired of this bullshit about enjoying the journey. I think it's actually a red flag sometimes, but because like if you gotta remind yourself you need to enjoy the journey, maybe like all the time for so long, maybe like it's not your journey, man. You shouldn't be on this journey. Like if like you know what I mean? Like it should be kind of like default enjoyable, or not enjoyable, but at least easy kind of. It needs to come from inside.
What is interesting to me, I have like sort of same like I think as Nico like mentioned it. So, like every day I kind of feel a bit anxious. Just like what if this happens? What if this happens? Like there's like
Yeah.
little breaking things that could happen. Yeah,
Like
this
what
is
kind of thing could happen that are scaring you?
I mean, like honestly, my biggest fear like every day is I wake up and somehow all my servers are like burned. Someone hacked into my account. They found my 2FA codes and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
man, they just cancel all accounts or they like even worse shit, they put like a porn site on all of my customer site, like whatever, like
Oh yeah.
kind of like irrational things, of course. And like I put so many things in place to like prevent this because I get paranoid. But like I mean, like it's these little things I think like especially for me, for example, because like it's like what do you call it? Like a lifestyle business. I'm dependent financially right now on this business, this is it, right? So if I push out an update, for example, like for HelpKit, Help has like hundreds of like customers, like help center sites, and these help centers have, they have obviously customers that are visiting their site, so it's a exponential. Is it exponential? I don't know. My math is not mathing, but there's much more people involved than you think than the initial customer base, right? So if I push out an update and I mess something up, man, like like everyone will know, not everyone, but people will notice. And so like whenever I push an update, like I started now doing updates like at specific times where I know there's less traffic, so I can fix stuff if it happens. But like finding that path, like getting there, I had moments where like even like last year, no, it was like 2 years ago, like with in Bali, it was like 1 a.m. I messed an update up. I published it at night because it was easier because of the traffic. I messed up an update. Man,
but
like
then to fix it, fix it, you have to spend the night.
Yeah, my heart rate was at 160, and imagine like needing to focus, coding while your heart rate is at 160, and you're not really sure what the problem is. And it's these like little things like that are messing with me like insanely hard. But I chose this path, and I think like over the past few years, I got really good at this. But like, did I take some, like I think Arvid Carr talks about this. Like he has this like. I think he get like Slack notifications whenever the server went down, and he still has like PTSD whenever he hears the Slack notification bubble,
Yeah, I bet.
I have the same, like I have the same, but like just with a different thing, like every time I see that, like maybe, like what customer reaches out and says like, oh, the site is not working. Even if the site is not working because they messed just something up,
Yeah,
or maybe
and most of the time that's what happens, I guess.
Yeah. Most of the time, like maybe they forget to, like their credit card tried to be charged 5 times and it didn't work out. So I had to pause their account, but the moment I read the subject line, my site is not working, I'm like,
oh shit,
it's over. And so, like it's just these little things that continue to be on your mind while it's like, and it's always the side is green on the other side. I see like all these like super cool Notion template creators, they create a template and then they sell it and they make like 300K a month. And
it's
I'm
just
like,
a glamorous product. It cannot go down. Yeah.
exactly. And like, don't get me wrong, they probably have issues that we don't know about. I would be curious to have one of these on. Maybe they share like their side.
True.
Because for me, it looks like they have at least like mindset wise, the easiest like struggles. But I mean, who knows, But like for me, I see
like,
them.
I mean, I sold like an info product with my Twitter course, and there is no problem. Like there is no hassle. There is no hidden shit. There's
so
nothing.
I'm like, man, I would love to chill here, not build a SaaS, but build an info product and just make money. And then like, sometimes do cool customer support and be the happy man. And like, but that's then like my path chose me to be in a different position. And I'm grateful I'm here, but I'm just saying, I think like running a SaaS, like as a solo founder, especially like, But then again,
Vassallo was talking about this years ago. Daniel Vassallo was talking about this years ago. He was saying, because he started with a SaaS, I think, indie hacking like 4 years ago or something. And it was like, so like impossible to make money and like so hard. And then he started doing info products and he made 100 times more money, way easier. And then he got into small bets and talking about, which I think is a very awesome idea. Also, because like with the success of my Twitter course, I think I made like 80 or 90K from it. And that was way easier to make than with a SaaS, at least for me, because I haven't been successful with SaaS. And there's this kind of weird feeling of like wanting to take the easy way. And I kind of feel like, kind of like I said earlier about feeling ashamed of going back to a job because it's less glamorous. I feel like going from, oh yeah, I'm going to build incredible products and I'm going to be an entrepreneur, to just being like, I'm just going to like sell sponsorship slots on this podcast and sell like an ebook. And that's going to be how I make money. I feel some shame around it because this seems so less glamorous in a way, less successful, let's say, less badass. But man, this is what this burnout taught me, is like, fuck trying to look good, fuck trying to be this persona, and just be like, what's the easiest way to be fulfilled and happy? Like this guy earlier, like Daniel from the indie hotline, who said, like, I'm just going to take this job. And so it's kind of like a balance to find between wanting to have like kind of like a life that's exciting, kind of like, like a life that you can dream about, that you're proud of. That's very important. But also, you know what? Fuck this shit, man. I'm just going to do what I want. I'm going to sell info products, and I have some shame around it, but I do it, with all my heart. People are happy. There's no harm done. It's awesome. It's positive. So why not,
Yeah, man. I mean, like, I think you in particular have like this, just like kind of, what is it? Yeah, like I want to be cool. I want to, stick out. I want to make something super, super, super special. While it's like, you probably don't even realize that like 99% don't even think about that you make like now an info product, and that's like less cooler, like nobody even thinks about it, especially like the amount of like work you put. I think you could probably put in like 30% less work and people would still think it's super cool. That's maybe something you kind of need to work on as well, is like this perfectionism. At least that's what I see. Like you work like the tiny pixelated things, we all love like everything needs to be super, super perfect, but like that also runs you into like all that, analysis paralysis bullshit and stuff.
But look, man, I'm working on it. Look at this fucking background. It's not perfect because I didn't align the fucking shit. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm doing it this way. And like the lighting is not even good. So yeah, I'm definitely working on that.
Yeah, but you're smart. Man. Your pink hair are just like blending it out and just hiding it.
Yeah, everybody's focused on the hair. So like it doesn't,
Nice.
Yeah, cool.
One thing.
Speaking about hair, you had your first gray hair, you said?
Oh my God, yeah. I had literally like my girlfriend, I feel like I'm like repeating what Nico said. Like we're so similar when it comes to this. Like I tried to get him out of his house here in Bangkok to meet him, but he is so hustling. So like I feel like it won't be possible. But like my girlfriend, same thing. She like looks at my hair one day in bed and like, it's like, wait a second, why do you have gray hair? And I'm like, I don't have gray hair. She pulls it out and there's like, like 3 strains of like gray hair. And I'm like, okay, Googling, like, is it normal for a 26-year-old to have gray hair? And then like people are like, it can't be genetic, but it can be stress. Do you have stress? And I'm like,
Yeah,
stress? Probably more than like
I
an
am
average
stressed.
person.
I
So
was born in it, molded by it. Yeah.
yeah, like what does it mean? Like reduce your stress. I love like when people say reduce your stress. Like, yes, I work out. I do some like I go to the sauna. Sometimes when
Yeah.
I'm like feeling nice, I do some breath work. But like, man, I still feel stressed. And
Yeah.
like,
It's like,
like yeah. Anyway, so she saw that and I got like I asked her like, what do you think? And she's like, she's a bit more mature. And I'm like, okay.
yeah, right. Yeah. It does. Yeah.
It's
That's
like,
also why I having pink hair, because like you have your first gray hair, but then you have 10, then you have 100, then you have 1,000. So,
but so isn't it cool to be a silver fox? Is that what they call it?
yeah, but you have to play the maturity card, so that like you have to change kind of
Right.
like if you're like acting too young, it's gonna look weird. So I'm
Oh, I
like,
see.
so it's weird to have like silver fox if you're only wearing hoodies. It doesn't really work. You need to be kind of like, you need to be silver fox with kind of like a suit, and that's sexy. But it is just like, so like it's kind of like so I'm trying to cling on to my youth with pink hair, but eventually I will own the silver fox, style.
Damn.
So yeah, man, do you feel like there's a way out of this, like for you to eventually relax more? Or do you think like Nico, you will need to exit? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, like
Do you have a plan to actually feel like less stressed, or no? Or do you not
well,
think
I mean,
about
like,
it?
man, like my plan changes by the day, I guess. Like it's like a certain MR goal, but then I hit the MR goal maybe, and then I realize I feel the exact same that I felt before, Then
Yeah.
I'm telling myself, but if I hit this MR goal, I will feel I feel really better. But then, like I try to ditch this kind of mindset. But obviously, like I think for me, like one great relief would be to have an exit, but have a big enough exit so I can be relieved actually.
So which number would that be for you?
I don't know. I feel like, so I've been talking about this like with my friend Jesse the other day of like, I think I'm maybe underestimating a bit the asset that I'm sitting on. Like I was like, I could see myself like selling it maybe for like, like 1.34, 1.5 million upward, like that's maybe something
Oh
that
wow,
would already
nice.
be
Okay.
enough for me. But then if you think about like just like how, like fire works in terms of like how much money do you actually have on a recurring basis if you
So basically,
retire.
just to explain, if I'm getting this correctly, FIRE is when you invest your money basically in index funds or something, and it brings you back dividends every year, and that's enough. Or you sell a little bit every year, but less than what you make. And so you kind of like get 3% or something, and then you live off that until you die, basically.
Well, yeah, that's the best case idea. Like till you die is always like if you become 120, probably your runway won't work. But I mean, most cases, yeah, that's the idea, right? Like you earn enough with the interest on the money you deposit in like an index fund or like any investment, and then that makes enough so you don't actually have to. So you actually earn an income, and like rule of thumb, I guess now maybe like the numbers are not really correct anymore. But if you have like I guess like 2 million in like deposited in like an ETF fund, that S&P 500, I think it runs around to like $4,000 a month that you would get recurringly for like, years on end, which I mean, that's kind of like what my friend Jesse was like kind of saying. It's like, do you want to have like 2 to 4K a month in like, like security, or do you want to have like 10K a month in security, right? Which you would be like by 5 million, 10 million, upwards, that kind of thing. What is my goal? Honestly, I think like I've seen yesterday someone even asking how much and cash do you like really want to have like as your goal, and I think the average that I calculated was like around 2 to 3 million, and I think I sit in the right same boat. Like 5 million upwards would obviously be even much better. But like the thing is, I feel like my first exit, I don't have to like reach that goal already. Like I feel like I have so many opportunities still. I want to try out, other things. And I'm also like not really like scared that I won't be able to make money after I exit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that
But
that's why I think it is weird with that. Yeah, because like I'm thinking it's steps, right? Like you can, like for example, let's say I don't make it to be fully sustainable with my info products and sponsorship
Mhm.
by October, and I take a job again. But then I will have made some success. So maybe I will still make like 2 or 3K passively from my stuff
Mhm.
on top of a job. And that's like something that accumulates, and then I can try again and add. So like, for example, if you were tired of HelpKit, you could sell it now, turn it into like, I don't know, 3K a month, and or maybe just turn it into 2K a month and use some of the money to create something else, like if you want it
Mhm.
or whatever. And you just keep like building up, on top of everything. I feel like this fire thing, it was initially for people who hate their life as a software engineer. And so the goal is like, after like, the idea is like you grind and have a shit life for 10 years and
Yeah.
then you can rest. But I don't feel like that's our lives. I feel like our lives are about creating, having like some sort of purpose and making money with it. And I feel like we will always try to be making money, like we said earlier, with side projects or stuff, until we're like too old to like work, but like until we're like at least 70, we'll be grinding, not grinding, but at least hustling a bit. And so I feel like it's a weird thing to be like, I can only sell when like it is going to make me when it's like 5 million and it's going to make me
Mm.
like 10K a month. Cause like you're going to have so many ways to make money in the next couple of years because you're going to keep creating. So,
Right. I really 110% like agree with this. I do think like that people like us would always want to make money. Like we want to build creative stuff, but also, have them like generate some income. I mean, eventually, if I would have enough money like that, I don't really have to really, really think about at the moment about like, survival stuff. I would like to do a bit more philanthropical stuff, like kind of every VC statement ever, but like that's what I also kind of
Yeah.
would like to do.
Yeah, it
I
makes
would like
sense.
love to like create some software for like, people that maybe need it, but nobody cares about them because there's no money, that kind of. So I would
Yeah. Yeah.
love to do that. Now it just doesn't make a lot of sense for me, unfortunately, because like what we talked about, like the whole, like pyramid of like needs, like I want to put myself first, and then I'm happy to help people, yeah, in that regard. And other than that, yeah, I don't know if I tweeted this, but like I have a list of like everything kind of like I did wrong with HelpKit in a way, like things
Yeah.
that I would do better, things that like how I would kickstart something if it would be new. And a lot of these things are I'm trying to retroactively like patch into HelpKit, which works to a certain extent. But if I could start from scratch, like, have like a blank slate and then put all of these things like together,
Yeah.
would probably be a completely different story as well. Maybe give me some like much, much bigger advantage to start with. Um, but yeah, I agree. Like, I honestly, like the biggest thing that made me more calm is realizing like if shit would hit the fan, kind of like with you, like worst case. There's a lot of people on the internet that like all love my website. They love my design. They keep asking me
Yeah.
like if I can do something. Like maybe I like worst case I do that, and then so like this is not there. But to be honest, though, still like right now, like I still, even though I know this backup is there, like I still don't feel like I have it. Like if that makes sense. Like I just
I know it
sometimes.
makes sense. I didn't, because I had this feeling before my burnout. I felt like, yeah, I can take a job. I know, but I was kind of like not wanting to deep down. So I think like, it's not what you want. But once I was forced to kind of like, okay, I have to take a job because like else I'm not going to be able to survive. It was so relaxing. I think it was really useful for me to get it, to just
Mhm.
have this feeling now of like, I didn't lose my identity. I didn't lose myself, which was what I was scared about. Because you cling to like this lifestyle, you cling to this, and you realize, and you think, and that's actually motivating to feel like I will never have a job again. It's motivating to like,
Mhm.
kind of like paint the other thing as like a nightmare. Having a job is terrible. Bosses are shit, and you have meetings all the time and all this shit. Well, the job I had, we had almost no meetings. I had like 1 30 minutes meeting a week.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
was completely remote. I was doing everything the fuck I wanted, and that was awesome. you know, and I was basically reporting to myself, and that was cool, you know. Yeah, I think so. I understand though, because like it's kind of like, I think, a necessary psychological process to think, to not want to consider the alternatives, because then it's like, because then it feels like, I could give up, I could quit, and my life would still be good. You could literally stop Help Kit and not put yourself through all this pain, and it will still be okay. That's kind of like scary to have that thought, because then you might be tempted to give up, and that is scary. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So, that, and I do have to say one more thing, which I found like, which I feel like was a really important milestone, like in my entrepreneurial life, and that was the fact that when I reached, maybe it was like 8K MR, like with HelpKit, it was like, there was like this point where I, like, how much do I need per month to live actually? And then I was like extrapolating it, how much I could technically worst case survive in Asia for a year, that kind of stuff. Once I realized this, like that I'm pretty comfortable in that spot, there was a bit of a switch in terms of like, I did like for maybe a few months, I did become a bit slower. Like I really like tried to get a bit like my working hours down. Like the worst case, not worst case, but the problem I always had, like 2 years building, indie hacking, I got like so socially, what's the word? Isolated, like I was like almost never going out. I was like meeting friends, and then they were asking, "Oh, you want to meet another time?" And I was like, "Yeah," but then, I canceled the meeting or didn't go.
Yeah.
And, and then at one point, like literally, I had one person tell me like, man, like this like magic word kind of, he's like, "Man, you're not living in the moment." And I was like, well, whatever. And then a few months later, someone else was like, "Man, like you always keep talking about what you are gonna do." Like I say, "Oh, I'm stoked about like in 2 weeks, I'm gonna be this doing." And like, and then I'm gonna be working on this. And then people were like, "Bro, like, can you like enjoy the day? Like we are here, maybe out, we were like climbing. Like, can you enjoy like the fact you're climbing on this like tree, whatever, not tree, like bouldering, whatever." And when I hit 8K, for like that was, I don't know the number, I took a bit of like a step back, and I gave myself the permission to do more things. Sometimes like maybe I didn't work for a day, or sometimes I worked like 2 hours a day for like 4 days, like straight, and like only did support ticket, which back then I couldn't even think about. Like I always do support tickets. That's like what HelpKit is like known for. Customers love it, and like I can't do it. No, like I can't leave the product without doing support. But like other than that, I took myself down, and this, like, I think if someone is in the same position, like that really helped me, because I think I would have really, really burned out if I wouldn't have done this. And now also in the relationship that I'm in for like the past 8 months, I'm realizing sometimes I'm taking, a bit time, like a little of the energy out maybe, which obviously is like for the business, like maybe an inch less good. But then for me, like I feel more refreshed. And so that's a really important thing as well that you cannot neglect.
Yeah, if you can have, that's a good point. Like if you can be with someone that's going to make you feel a bit more relaxed and kind of like bring you back into the moment, because, you have to be present with her if you want to have a good relationship.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, man. I've been in like casual things where like I couldn't, like we were sitting together at the dinner table, but like I couldn't even think about her. Like I was just like in my mind, like, did I get a support ticket, or did like, what do I do tomorrow in marketing? Like horrible. But yeah, you don't want to be there. But that's also why sometimes when you are in that position, maybe you should be dating, like keep the dating side away.
Or maybe that's not the right person and there's like nothing going on. Like, but like,
there's this whole like, this James Clear thing. Like he came up with this idea of like the 4 burner method. I don't know if you heard about it.
No.
Which is like, he has this like metaphor of like, life has like, you have like 4 burners, right? Kitchen burners, like the stove. And it's consists of these 4 burners. And one is for family, one is for health, like physical health. The other one is for friends. And then the other one is for like relationship. And the idea is like his assumption is like, hey, look, you have 4 burners. Ideally, you want all of them to burn at the same amount, like strongly, all of them 4, right? But it's not possible. You don't have enough gas to like leave all these 4 burning. So you need to technically have a way to find out how can you deal with that fact. And there's a few methodologies that he proposes in terms of, do you keep all 4 at a lower pace? So you're kind of doing everything a bit. That's horrible. Like, you're not doing anything great. So everything suffers. Do you only keep one burning? and then focus 100% on that. And then like, he goes through these ideas. And then one of the best approaches that I have seen, and once I read it, it really resonated with me, was the idea of having seasons. And the idea is that maybe you have you try to keep two burners alive. You focus on maybe health and business. Let's say these two things, right? Kind of like most indie hackers are in this position, I guess. So you focus on these two things, and the rest, you need to neglect them a bit. But then you have seasons. Maybe it takes you like a year, or let's say hopefully less, a few months, and then all of a sudden you realize, the business is taking off. Maybe I keep a bit more of the health and I start dating again, and then you try to balance these things a little. And that resonated the most with me, the seasons approach. At least that's how that feels like exactly how I'm living my life now.
Yeah.
And it's a great analogy, I think, to kind of, like, what it did for me is it gave me the permission to know that there are things that I'm neglecting, and it's just natural that they are neglected. They will be a bit neglected, because otherwise you think, oh my God, I need to do all of these things at the same time, and it will make it absolutely miserable.
Yeah, I feel like, and I agree, like just trying to do a little bit of everything, it's never satisfying. Because like it's better when you can go all in on something and then cycle through. Yeah, I would definitely do that too. Because then I feel also when, like, let's say you spend like a long, like 6 months or 1 year on your business, then after that, usually it will be able to kind of like, you can put it in like maintenance mode.
Yeah.
And if I can go back to the stove analogy, let's say you have a pan and you heat it for like some time, eventually, even if you lower the heat, it's going to stay harder for a while, because like the metal or the thing keeps the heat, you know? And then so you can use the momentum to put the fire on other, stoves, on other burners, and then, then come back when the other thing got cold or something, So that can be a way. Awesome, man.
I like that.
Awesome, man. So like, can you tell us a bit more about what you do, like where people can find you and shit?
Yeah, sure. So I'm active on Twitter, probably like the most thing that I spend the most time on, at Dominik. I work most of the time on this like no-code tool that turns Notion into like a professional help center called HelpKit. That's what I've been working on for the past 3 years. Also doing some other side projects, something related to like film photography. I also launched like a little guide that helps people to find out how they can like make their life a little bit easier moving to different like nomad cities. I launched a guide for Bangkok, which I spent a lot of time in, so I know a bit of stuff about it. But yeah, mainly working on HelpKit. That's what my daily bread is.
Awesome, man. That was so cool to have you on, after all this time knowing each other. So yeah, man, I wish you the best, and let's follow you on Twitter and see what you're up to.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Cheers.